All right, everybody, welcome back to episode 4. Super excited. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about pre qualifications. Past couple of episodes have been about home buying, home selling, but now a little bit about why getting pre qualified is important. So, big question right now, Patty, is what's the difference between getting pre qualified and pre approved?
So, hi everybody, welcome back. Monica, the difference between being pre-qualified and being pre-approved is that sometimes there's going to be people that come in and they want to see what they pre-qualify for. And pre-qualify is just basics, like me going over what they provide me verbally. Like I'm not reviewing documentation, I'm not reviewing pay stubs or W-2s or anything like physical. It's just what you're telling me, and we go over like very basics of, okay, I make so much and I have about this much of debt, and then I can say, oh, okay, based on what you're telling me and what your credit score is, that you think that your credit score is, then you could qualify for this much. Once somebody's pre-approved, that means that I'm going over documentations. When we do when we send out a pre-qualification letter, I'm going to go over your income. I'm going to review your credit. I'm going to review bank statements. And on the credit report, when we're reviewing that, we're going to check your points and see what your credit score is. We're going to see if there's any like liens, if there's any bankruptcies, because you can qualify, but it has to be, at least 2 years. Depending on the program, there's some that it's 1 year, depending on the type of bankruptcy. You still could qualify to buy a house. But there's certain things that we go over on your credit report that we need to know if you're going to qualify. And then from there, we'll review your income. So income, if you're a W-2 employee, we're going to review 1 month worth of pay stubs. We're going to review the last 2 years of W-2s, and then if you're self-employed, we review your income taxes. So then once we do all that, and of course your bank statements, we review bank statements also because we want to see if there's any additional debt. The big things that we see on bank statement loans. So if this is you, don't do this. I'm just kidding. But the big thing that we see on additional debt sometimes is Klarna payments, Affirm payments, and things like that. We want to see if if these are long-term debt or if they're short-term debt. Then it'll depend if we have to include it as part of your debt that you have. So then, and we review to see if there's any like big deposits, any cash deposits, especially to see if how that's gonna affect the pre-qualification. But like we always say, reach out, don't, not because you're hearing these things and it applies to you doesn't mean that you're not going to qualify. So it's always good to reach out to a lender and get informed and find out what, your situation is. But that's pretty much like the difference. And once you are pre-qualified, we're going to go over, your numbers. We're going to go over how much you qualify based on your income, based on that your credit. Because your credit is important. The higher your credit score is, then it's going to base off, how much you can qualify based on your income. So we go over that. We go over what your payment looks like. We're going to go over, because in your payment, you're going to pay interest, you're going to pay mortgage insurance, depending on, how much down payment you're putting down. You're going to pay for homeowner's insurance, and sometimes you have an HOA fee. So then that all makes part of your payment, and then we go over that. And a lot of the times when I meet with people and we're going over that pre-qualification, I like to tell them, what their buying power is, how much they really qualify for. But I always tell, our clients that not because you qualify for, let's say, 500, 600,000 means that, you have to buy a house in that price range. Like you can always, buy something that fits your needs, fits your budget, that the monthly payment makes sense for you.
Right. And that's one thing that we always discuss with the clients. It's not so much what amount are you looking for, it's what monthly payment you feel comfortable with. And I think that's very important for us. Because like she says, we want to make sure that our clients stay within a budget that they can do. and that they're going to be able to maintain and, be happy with the home that they get.
Yeah. And it's super important to know, how much you qualify for and that monthly payment, because a lot of the times maybe, in your head, you're thinking a certain number, but then you start seeing those houses, right? And maybe it's not, what you want. And then, or not, it doesn't fit your needs of what you're looking for. And sometimes maybe you do have to readjust and make that payment a little bit more, make more sense for you.
Right.
Whether it's increasing it a tiny bit, but not going, over, where you're really, it's going to be too much. Cause I mean, a lot of the times, everyone has a different lifestyle and they have a different, things that they do with their budget. So at the end of the day, you're the one that knows what your limit is. I can tell you on paper and I can tell you by verifying, that you qualify for so much, but doesn't mean that that's really what you want to, be in.
No, yeah. And sometimes too, we have clients that we're able to qualify them for a certain amount, but again, their needs exceed that a little bit more. So sometimes, they do bring in a co-signer, try to get qualified for a little bit more. So that's really important to, we just want to make sure that, the clients get what it is that they're actually wanting and are looking for. And like sometimes, like you said, as a realtor, we do have to maybe jump up a little bit if they're not liking what they're in, but we don't ever push people to do more than what they're able to or want.
No, qualification process is for you to know, what's a realistic payment too, because sometimes people are like, oh, I want to pay $1,000 a month, but you're not going to find anything at $1,000 a month. And sometimes too, it's that's part of the reason why it's important, to go over your situation. And it's also important because you don't want to be Zillow shopping and looking on Zillow for houses that don't even fit your budget, and then and then once Monica takes you out and then you're looking at houses that are in your budget, you're going to be like, yeah, no, this is not what I was thinking, so we don't want to put you in that situation either. So it's important that once you decide that you want to buy, that you're ready to, start your plan, to start looking or to see if you qualify, to, contact Monica. Monica will refer you to me, contact, a lender. Hopefully it's me. And then so you can see where you're at. Like it doesn't cost anything. Like nobody should be charging you up front for getting that pre-qualification. Your local lender, your whoever you trust and you feel comfortable with is going to do that free. Like they're not going to charge you any fees that have to do with that home buying process are going to happen for the most part towards the end of once you're ready to close. There are some fees that you pay once you're under contract, but it's once you're under contract, like once you find that house, and you're good to go.
Right. And speaking of under contract, like me personally, I don't take clients shopping without a pre-qualification. One, like you were talking about, it's very important to know what they qualify for, because otherwise you're just showing them homes that they're interested in. But sometimes they're not able to qualify for those homes. And then when they get the pre-qual, they see their amount and they qualify for a little bit less. Well, they compare everything to those more beautiful, nicer homes and things like that. So I never want to discourage my clients by like taking them to see homes that they cannot qualify for. And then, like you said, under contract, like even if they were to like a home, you wouldn't be able to do anything because that pre-qualification letter is what you're going to use to show them, hey, they're qualified. The bank is going to give them the loan to purchase this house.
Yeah. And what I also like to tell people and remind everyone is that when you are ready to shop or you're ready to like see where you're at and you want to get pre-qualified, it's super important that you send out all the documents that we need. The sooner you send them out, and we take that application, the sooner it's gonna be for me to be able to, send out that pre-qual to Monica, to a realtor, so that they can start shopping. Sometimes, we start the application process, I would say like halfway, right? Like I can take it over the phone. We can take it online. We can do the application in person. So once I have like the basics, then yes, I can run credit. I can do that. But I do need to verify, like we said, those documents. We need to verify the pay stubs. Why do we verify pay stubs? Because sometimes someone's going to say, oh, yeah, I'm full-time.
They lie.
They think that they're full-time. And then maybe for them, full-time is 35 hours a week.
Yes, correct.
Versus I'm thinking full-time, you're working 40 hours a week. So once I see that paycheck stub, then I'm going to see like, oh, okay, he is full-time. He's working 40 hours a week. And then I'm going to check the year to date. And I'm going to check to see, whether last year they also worked, full-time 40 hours a week. And we do all the math to make sure it makes sense. Sometimes there's people that were working part-time at their same jobs last year and then they went full-time. So, and that's okay. Like, that's not an issue for you to qualify. Like, we would still count, your full-time current employment. But we verify that everything matches up. If there's, if it doesn't, then, we start asking the extra questions. Also, sometimes, we'll see extra things on that paycheck stub that we'll ask you questions on. And it's not because, we're just, trying to ask you a bunch of questions
Metiches.
and being metiches over here. It's because like we need to know, the more information you give us, the better. If something doesn't apply and we don't need to use it or it doesn't pertain, then that's fine. Like, it doesn't hurt anybody. The more that we know, the better position you're going to be in and the smoother closing we're going to have. And I love when my clients send me everything that I ask for and they don't ask me, well, why do you need it? Because, we're trying to help you. We want you to buy a house. If this is your goal, then our goal is to make it happen. So that's something that I like to, let people know is the sooner you send us your documents, the sooner I can get you going. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer when we have multiple peoples on an application, because now it's, we have one borrower, two borrowers. I've had 3 borrowers on an application. And sometimes, it does take a little bit longer for that. And I know, people work and things like that. But that's why, we try to remind you, ID, pay stubs, W-2, bank statements. Like, pretty simple. It's not a lot of stuff. And it shouldn't take that long either. So once I have all that information, the application I can take in like 15 minutes for the most part, depending on how many, borrowers we have. And then from there, once we review anything, it can take anything from like an hour to, just depending on how soon I have it, so that I can work on that pre-qual and get it sent out. And then you can start, moving it on with Monica and shopping and looking for those houses.
Yeah, and sometimes you're not going to have everything like at the initial meeting, because most of the times we set up a buyer consult in person and we'll send you a list of documents, if you're wanting to apply to bring. And it's okay if you don't have them. We tell our clients, bring what you have and we'll help you with the rest. And like Patty says, sometimes for the our elderly clients, they're still not tech savvy. So like, we don't mind going out of our way. We'll go pick up documents. We'll scan them. We'll make sure that you get them back. So don't let that discourage you from applying if you don't have all the documents that you need right then and there. We do try our best to help you. I believe we had one client that he didn't receive a W-2 from one of his jobs, and we were helping him out with his previous company to make sure he got that so we could get him that pre-qualification. So, we're here to help. And again, like I always say, the team that you work with really does matter. We're here to give you guys those keys and, purchase your home.
Yeah. And for sure, like she said, sometimes there is gonna be people that don't have, those W-2s. Maybe I actually worked with a friend of mine, a client that I was able to help, and they didn't, because they ended up going to prison, and they lost all their documentations. So then what we ended up doing is, we found the plan, we got what we needed, and we made it work. So if, they're lost, don't worry. We know how to be able to get, documentations to prove your work history. So, don't let that discourage you. So Monica, I know too, why it's also important to have that pre-qualification letter or your pre-approval is because it puts you in a better position when you're submitting offers. Like the seller's gonna take your buyer more serious.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, correct. So, let's say you're shopping around, like I said, without a pre-qual, and you like a house, and all of a sudden now you decide to get pre-qualified. myself, if I come in with a client that's already pre-qualified and I have that letter, they're not gonna, even if your agent were to reach out like, hey, my clients really want this house, they're looking to put an offer in, but we're just waiting for a pre-qual to come in. Technical difficulties in the background, but that's okay. Versus me like, hey, here's an offer, here's my pre-qual letter from my lender stating that they're ready to go. And they will take that one more seriously because they know, hey, this is this is basically a done deal. Like, it's going to get closed because they have the letter. The other one, they're still working on getting pre-qualified. And like Patty mentioned earlier, if they're not getting their documents in a timely manner, it can take anywhere from a couple of days to a couple of weeks. And that's happened to myself, where I've had clients that just like passing time because they really don't have a sense of urgency right now. So like they want to see where they qualify, but they're taking a little bit more time. And then also, the pre-qualification, it straightens like negotiation too, because you're able to, submit offers, request closing costs because your buyer is ready. Your buyer's ready to close on that property. It shows the seller that, they're committed and that's the property that they want. And then like same thing, like if we end up going into a competitive market, let's go back to 2021, I believe, when, a lot of people were coming over from California and prices skyrocketed and it was a competitive market. That pre-qualification letter is going to put you in the front of the line compared to others that are just barely getting qualified again or that are not there yet but are out seeing homes. So it definitely gives you a leg up on the other competition to be qualified already when you're able to go and start seeing the homes. The importance understanding of monthly payment versus the purchase price. Patty talked a little bit about this, but so your payment is going to be broken down. A lot of people, like we've been talking about, focus on the purchase price, but what does the monthly payment really consist of? Because a lot of people are unaware sometimes. Like, yes, they think mostly it's just principal and interest, but there's also other things that go into that. So when they go to like Google and pull out a mortgage calculator and it says 23, but you tell them a different number, it's because they're not including some of the other items that are on there. Like you mentioned property taxes, homeowner insurance, mortgage insurance, if there's HOA fees, and then, if they're looking at a condo or a townhome, there's other fees included too.
People go to like those the Zillow websites and then they show them that, monthly payment. Like that monthly payment is only the principal and interest. It doesn't include all the other stuff. And then plus, they also base it off a 20% down payment. They don't base it off of, for the most part, they don't base it off a 3.5 down payment because that's going to make a big difference on that payment that you're seeing on Zillow versus what I'm going to go over with you, because most people that are buying their first home, they want to buy a house with, the minimum that they can, because a lot of people don't really have that much savings. We've talked about, how much do you need in order to buy a house? So then 3.5%, sometimes some people can qualify with 3%. And then if we're using down payment assistance, like that's going to make a difference on your payment too. It's not going to be that same payment that you're seeing on Zillow. So that's super important for you to understand and know that, it's whatever payment you're seeing there is not really true unless you're going to put that 20% down. Then you might be close to it because, they're not including, property taxes, and they're not including that HOA payment and whatever other fees, that they have. Once you put that 20% down, you're not paying mortgage insurance. So, that's going to help a little bit, but that's a lot of the times what people think that they have to put 20% down, but in reality you don't. And even if you already own a house and you want to buy a second house, I know I'm going a little bit off topic, but just so you don't have to put 20% down. You can put, sometimes some people will qualify with 5% down. It's all going to depend on where your credit's at.
Right. And, it's very important, whether you use us or somebody else, the lender and the realtor, relationship and how well they work together, because our goal at the end of the day is to make sure that you guys reach your goal, as Patty, was talking about earlier. Like, we want to make sure that you guys find a home that fits your needs within your budget. Make sure that, we're there throughout the process. If you guys have questions, that we're answering those questions, and that, I think we do a pretty good job with our clients, honestly. Like, any time they reach out, we always answer the questions. If I don't know, like, I will tell them, let me get with Patty, because, that's more of a Patty thing, but we do try our best to make sure that, our clients are happy and we help them reach their goals. And then just a little bit, advice for first time buyer, Patty. What are some of the advice you would give?
So for a first time buyer, I would say talk to a lender early. I know a lot of the times people, you're renting, you have, contracts. My suggestion would be at least, the earlier you do it, the better. Because a lot of people, if you know that your credit isn't the best, we're gonna need. Sometimes some people need a year to work on their credit. Sometimes some people need 6 months. Sometimes some people need. Sorry, we have visitors over here.
Sometimes people need 30 days.
Sometimes people need 30 days, and sometimes some people are ready, like they don't even know. Like you have no idea how many clients I've been able to help that they come in. They're like, I have no idea where my credit's at. I don't know where I'm at. And then we pull that credit and they're like in the 700s, So, and that's always exciting. When I meet with people, I always ask them, so what do you think your credit score is going to be? I like to play that little like guessing game with them, and sometimes some people really have no idea where they're at. But there's people that do know, they know whether they have good credit or bad credit. And then, so it'll just depend on that. If you do have bad credit, the earlier you do it, the better that you reach out, because then we can make a plan. Because like we said, sometimes it's going to take 6 months up to a year. So if you have a contract and let's say you have good credit, then I would say at least 3 months before, just to double check, make sure that you are on track to being able to make that home purchase. Because I know a lot of the contracts sometimes require you to give your the renter a notice, and it's like 2 months. Sometimes they want 60 days. So it's important to know where you're at early, and it doesn't hurt. Like I said, a lot of people think that if we run your credit, that it's really gonna like dump it, that it's gonna go low, it's gonna affect it. And in reality, when you're doing a mortgage, when you're pulling credit for a mortgage, it doesn't affect it that much. It's like 3 points maybe, like at all, at the most. So it's okay. Like it's okay for you to apply. Like nothing's gonna happen. And I always tell my clients, if I pull your credit, I'm gonna know what we need to do to get it higher. So don't be afraid, to get your credit pulled when you're buying a house. If you're out shopping for cars, or if you're out shopping and getting credit cards, then that's gonna affect your credit a little bit different. So I would suggest that, no co-signing. No co-signing for anything, installment loans, no nothing. Don't be a co-signer if you're trying to buy. Because what happens too is a lot of people think, oh, well, they're paying for the house, or they're paying for the car, or they're paying for this loan, they're doing it. But a lot of the times we can exclude that payment, because there's certain rules that we have to follow in order to be able to do that. And then that might slow you down a little bit too. So that I would tell first-time home buyers that they need to do. Don't be running your credit. Don't open new accounts. Let's meet with a lender early so we can see where you're at. And if you have the possibility and the way to be able to have savings, have savings. It doesn't hurt you to, have some money saved up. If we're using down payment assistance, which it'll cover your down payment and you qualify for it, then at least, you have those savings that you can have for something else down the road if you need to fix something in your house, or you want to buy furniture once you're closed, on the house, then you have that option to do that. Not because you have savings disqualifies you from being able to use down payment assistance. A lot of people think that too. So that would be my little advice on that.
And I fully agree with what you're saying. Like, obviously, like you said, the sooner the better. And we do that. People with having leases coming up at least 3 months prior, talk with the lender, see where you're at. Because if you need to fix things, you have time and you're not stressed.
Yeah. It's we can do it too. Trust me. We've closed loans in like 2 weeks. But the sooner you reach out, it's gonna be a more
gratifying experience.
Yes. Like you're not gonna be stressed, and it's my job to be stressed. But we don't like to be stressed either. But we know we can do it. Like if like I said, if we have you well prepared and everything's in place and everything's reviewed, you can, once you're under contract, you can close. I can close in 2 weeks, sometimes less. But and sometimes it happens. Like sometimes you don't even think, okay, I'm renting. I didn't think that I could buy a house because I don't know, maybe nobody in my family's done it before. And actually that's pretty neat though, when, nobody in your family's done it and we're able to help you, know and tell you, yes, you can buy a house. So yeah, and it's okay, reach out, even if it's, 30 days that your contract's over, Monica's quick. She's going to get you under contract as long as you qualify and we got everything we need. So yeah.
Too is, sometimes we have clients that come in and their credit is not where it needs to be, and that's okay. We don't discourage our clients. Even if you feel like your credit is so terrible that there's no way you'll be able to qualify for a house ever, don't assume. Come in and talk with us, especially Patty. Patty does a great job. If your credit is not where it's at, she gives you a plan, and it works. We've had people, have like, terrible credit, let's say, and, they're on their way and they're working it up, and we check in with them from time to time and they're doing the plan, and, their credit is going up and they will purchase their home.
Yeah. And it's okay. It's okay to be scared. Like I like to tell people, like, it's a big decision. It's a big purchase and it is scary. Like I remember when, I bought my first house, I was scared. Like I didn't think I qualified. Like I don't know, but I did it because I wanted to own a house. Like I was done paying rent. Like I was like, no more. Like I rented for, 4 or 5 years and I'm just giving my money away when I could have purchased maybe earlier and had that equity in my house. But it's okay. I decided and I did it and, I stuck with it and I'm a homeowner and there's nothing wrong with it. Like,
no,
it's okay.
and to piggyback off that, when I purchased, I didn't purchase. My first home was purchased by my husband, by himself, because my credit was terrible. I just couldn't. And, that kind of like woke me up a bit. But, it is still doable. You know what I mean? And it's okay if your credit is terrible because same thing, I got with a credit plan person. They helped me, fix my things because I was young and dumb, the good old life. But, I mean, don't let it discourage you from what I'm saying. Now we bought our second home and guess what? I bought it too. And it's an accomplishment. It's a feeling.
No, yeah. And it's okay. Like, if you're scared and don't worry if, like you said, if it's the worst credit ever, the good thing about your credit is that it can go up. If it's down, there's things that we can do. And it might take a little bit longer, but at least it's a plan. Like if you're not ready right away, like it's okay too. Like, don't worry, don't, be afraid. And we got you, we're here to support you and we're here to make sure, like we said, if your goal is to buy a house, whether it's going to take 30 days or it's going to take 6 months or it's going to take a year or two, like we're here to, help you and guide you so you can reach that goal.
No, yeah, absolutely. So, don't reach out to us with any questions. Like we started off in the beginning of the episode, even if it's just like little quick estimates, just, talk with the lender.
And I think the other thing too, Monica, is that's important. We talked a lot about credit, and I know you had mentioned, the debt to income, and sometimes some people don't qualify for a lot. Like that's another thing too. Like they might have great credit and they don't qualify for enough or for something, or I guess I could say they don't qualify for enough, whether it's, it's too little, there's nothing out there for them to purchase, or it's not what they're looking for. Like maybe they really need something bigger and they can't qualify for it. So then we also go over, things they can do to be able to increase their buying power, whether it's paying down debt, whether it's adding another person on the application, or sometimes even if it's, asking for a raise at work or looking for a new position, that's going to pay you more. So, it's a plan. Like we are going to financially guide you so that you can reach the goal that you want.
No, yeah. Se acabó.
Okay.
Are you ready?
We're done.
Okay, so in conclusion, I believe, and I found this quote online and I really like it. It says, getting pre-qualified isn't about limiting your dreams. It's about understanding how to make those dreams a reality. The strongest buyers don't start with a house search. They start with a financial plan. And so with that, I think we will conclude episode 4. And we thank you guys all for joining us. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, everyone. And I know I was like, oh my gosh, because I kept thinking about my daughter. My daughter's so excited that that we're on YouTube.
Our number one fan.
And she's like, Mom, can I go?
Oh, you should bring her.
So maybe one of these days and she can be our like, make sure you like, subscribe and share whatever it is that we say over here.
Oh, she can end it.
But, yeah.
That'd be cute.
So anywho, thank you so much, you guys, and we can't wait till next week.
Bye.
Bye.